Feels like the perfect time to run through champions who lost their titles only to immediately get them back, given what happened the other day with old Stone Man, huh? It's a pretty rare feat, actually, and I'm gonna rank them by how damn spectacular that takeback was. Starting with number 10, World Series of Questionable Judging. All right, this one grinds my gears because I know like 3 of you saw this originally, but I'm gonna talk about what the heck was bothering me about it, and you're just gonna have to trust me on it. Or go watch the fights, they're on YouTube. Lance Palmer, you might at least remember him. He won the 2019 PFL Featherweight Tournament and got himself $1 million. Short, stocky, all-American collegiate wrestler, Team Alpha Male type. He was at Extreme Couture when he won the PFL tournament, but before that, in 2015, he actually was in Team Alpha Male, and back then the PFL was called the World Series of Fighting. Anyway, Palmer wasn't the division's inaugural champion, but he did fight for it and ended up the division's 3rd and only repeat champ.
Lance Palmer is the new champ. Wow!
When he meets up with Alessandro Almeida at WSOF 26 to defend his title, he'd already done so once before, and after 5 full rounds with the Brazilian where Lance just couldn't quite get inside for the vast majority of the fight, the judges rendered their cards for the challenger. Now, watching this fight for this video, the judges got it right 100%, but at the time, apparently everybody but Boss and Chael on commentary thought it was a terrible call.
Almeida won the fight. There was a time in MMA when the judges didn't understand enough about the sport to know what they were looking at.
Almeida, he was constantly attacking. He worked harder on the ground. He did everything.
Maybe listen to the 2 legendary fighters about who won. Apparently even WSOF's Dana White, Ray Sefo thought Lance should have been given the nod.
The fight was going to be kind of back and forth, but I thought Lance at least won 4 out of 5, you know what I mean?
And so an immediate rematch was made. Almeida felt it was because US audiences knew Palmer better and for no other reason, and he's probably partially right there. And here's where things get more messed up. They do the rematch, they go another 25, and damn it, I think the judges this time got it wrong because they gave Palmer his title back. But here's the thing. It was nearly a repeat of the first fight. Lance did have more success in spurts, but the cards were absurd. One judge ruled it a draw, another gave Palmer all 5 rounds despite getting knocked down in one of those rounds, and the other gave him 4. I don't think Palmer should have gotten the rematch, and I think he lost the rematch, but the judges gifted him his belt back. There, I said it. These 2 fought a 3rd time at the start of the PFL tournament in 2019. That one, Palmer does win 100%. So there you go. Good for him. Number 9, a champ by any other name. Technically, Vitor Belfort was a light heavyweight champion in the UFC, and technically Randy Couture lost his title to Vitor Belfort. If you check the record, bud, like Uriah Faber, those are the facts, but this situation is a lesson in context truly mattering. Randy Couture had just resurrected his dying career for the first time. After losing the heavyweight title to Josh Barnett and then losing in a vacant title fight with Rico Rodriguez, it looked like things were over for Couture. But then he got thrown into an interim light heavyweight title fight with Chuck Liddell, a fight he was supposed to lose, but he did not. This gave him a shot at Tito Ortiz and earned him a 2nd belt in a 2nd UFC division. In his first defense, though, against Vitor Belfort, Couture would run into a bit of a snag. A missed punch less than a minute in would damage Randy's eye so badly that they called a doctor stoppage.
And I wasn't sure I was going to get my vision back, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to fight again. And
so Vitor was technically champ, but everybody knew that a rematch would be immediate, and immediate it was. 8 months later, the two would have another go at it, with no errant punch to ruin things, and with Couture righting the wrong by winning his title back after 15 minutes.
It's all over!
That's it.
Randy Couture is once again the light heavyweight champion of the world!
Number 8, Rematch King. Fun fact about Patricio Pitbull, he is 6-0 in rematches. The dude never loses to anyone twice.
You can't beat me twice in a row, I know that for fucking fact.
Which is part of the reason he's the greatest Bellator fighter of all time in a lot of eyes. Certainly these 2. The 3-time featherweight champion with 9 defenses, who also held the lightweight title for a cup of coffee during his 2nd run, fell into one of the biggest fights Bellator's ever put on when he ended out the promotion's featherweight Grand Prix against what looked to be the future of Bellator, the unbeaten AJ McKee.
Showtime, baby.
Come get it, I want my belt.
Of course, Bellator didn't have a future, but we didn't know that at the time. $1 million was on the line, as well as Pitbull's title. It truly didn't get any bigger, and wow, did McKee deliver on that whole future thing. It was a fantastic moment. There was confetti, there were backflips. It felt like a true changing of the guard. But Patricio Pitbull doesn't lose rematches. And of course, when you beat the best ever, you know you're gonna have to beat him twice. And so the rematch was made, and the second fight would be, it was okay. Fairly uneventful throughout. Most of the rounds were kind of hard to judge as a result. Honestly, watching it again, it could have gone either way, but either way, it did not go. Pitbull regained his title to the absolute shock of AJ McKee. Look at that man's face. And Patricio kept that gold on him until he came to the UFC this year. Number 7, goat cheesed. There are a few fights that were meant to go as obviously as Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. When the two fought, Nunes' status as the greatest female fighter to ever live was already firmly in place. In fact, there was talk about when she would just hang it up because there were no more lands to conquer, really.
There's nothing else to be done right now, and what else is there left for her to do? She's beaten everybody. Look at the list. It's pretty insane, you know?
Beating Pena was not lands. It was like leasing a storage unit. Just another number to add to the stats page. Juliana was 2-2 in her last 4 over the course of 4 years. The win that earned her that opportunity was against Sarah McMahon, who'd lost 2 of her last 3. So this was a title fight that needed to happen because there just happened to not be any other choices. So when Pena brawled it out with Nunes in the second round and eventually took her neck, everybody's flabbers were gassed it. And now this forgettable footnote was suddenly legacy altering. If Nunes lost a second time to Pena, what would that mean? How would that change her overall legacy? So now there were questions going into that rematch for bantamweight gold. Amanda needed to make a statement, and she did.
Oh, those are big elbows.
Pena's bloody up bad.
And battered, the greatest of all time came to fight tonight.
The scorecards read 50, 45, 44, and 43 respectively. I think the 43 is the most accurate. It was total domination and the kind of win that nullifies the kind of loss that really can be a stain on an otherwise nearly untouchable legacy. Number 6, Warrior win back. Christian Lee is one of ONE Championship's best homegrown talents. He's probably one of the few homegrown talents that you know of. Starting his career with the promotion at just 19 years old, the standout fighter would go 11-3 in the promotion's lighter divisions before pumping up to lightweight, which is welterweight here, and beating the legendary Shinya Aoki to earn 1 gold.
It's the Pena! It's Christian Lee!
He would need 3 defenses in order to become the winningest champion in the division to surpass Aoki, but standing in his way was Ok-Ray Yoon, who you might remember for being the final loss and fight of Eddie Alvarez's career. Now, ONE has a different scoring criteria, and they judge fights on a whole, so after 5 hard-fought rounds, it really did feel like Lee had the better moments with a near choke, a few key knockdowns, and offense that looked closer to ending the fight. But it was ambiguous enough for the judges to all agree that Ok was the winner, and immediately afterwards, Christian called bullshit.
I want an instant rematch. That was bullshit. Okay? I won that fight.
And so a rematch was rightly made. It could have and probably should have gone to Lee, not to mention he's popular, so of course they were gonna run it back. But in the second fight, Christian would leave no doubt.
Overhead. One drops in the knee! And another knee! Another knee! That's it! It's good night, Irene! It's good night, Irene! Christian Lee's done it!
What a sport, what a great time kicks and knees on the ground are. Number 5, frequent flyweights. Man, when Davison Figueiredo came along and took the flyweight title, he looked like such a destroyer. What he did to Joseph Benavidez, I don't even like to think about. He followed that up, people forget, with a 2-minute stoppage of Alex Perez. So going into that first fight with Moreno, expectations weren't that high that it was going to be some kind of barn burner. In fact, there was worry still that the UFC might just nix the whole division. But of course, their first fight would end up being an all-timer and a draw. So given that it was the most exciting thing at flyweight in a minute, maybe ever, of course it was run back. But this time around, Moreno would secure a rear naked choke in the third, leaving no room for a draw and taking the God of War's title from him.
You have a champion!
And believe it or not, that would have been it. In fact, current champ Pantoja was next man up, but with a knee injury, he couldn't make the window the UFC wanted, and the UFC waits on no flyweight. Not to mention, Figgy had been lobbying hard for a trilogy bout. Hey, you don't gotta convince the UFC to have a good time at flyweight if there ever is one. Sure, run it back. The third fight would be Figgy's revenge and another 5-round banger. These dudes have had more awesome rounds against each other than possibly anyone ever. So Davison got his belt back, and immediately, just like the title of the video. So at 1-1-1, they had to run it again, but unfortunately for Moreno, it wouldn't be an instant rematch as intended, with Figgy out injured, so he doesn't make this prestigious list himself since he had to win interim gold first before winning their quadrilogy fight. Rather than repeat the cycle against each other until the end of time, Figueiredo moved up a weight class and their rivalry ended. Number 4, Bellator buzzer beater. Bellator 106 was at the time the biggest card the promotion had ever put together. It was meant to be a pay-per-view, in fact, with Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson headlining above 3 title fights. But when the fight fell apart a week before the show, they rightly moved it to Spike TV. Still massively stacked. The rematch between Eddie Alvarez and Michael Chandler, Emmanuel Newton versus King Mo, and the subject of our entry, Pat Curran versus Daniel Strauss. The two had met early in their careers on the regional scene, with Pat getting his first ever stop and Strauss getting the last that he'd ever have up to that Bellator rematch. Curran was destroying the featherweight division, had 2 defenses, one over Patricio Pitbull, and he was arguably the top featherweight outside the UFC.
I am Bellator. I started from nothing, worked my way through the tournament, and became a champion. I've made it to the top, and I plan on staying here for a very long time.
Strauss won Season 6 to get his shot at Pat, and in a stunner, handedly took the fight from Curran, grappling his way to a clear UD victory. Despite such a decisive win, Pat was given an immediate rematch, which pissed fans off, but he made the most of it. Well, in the last 14 seconds he did.
It's up! There's the top! And just like that, in the dying seconds of this fight, Pat Curran has won back the Bellator featherweight world title.
Nothing like waiting to the last minute, Howitzer. What a come-from-behind victory. Not quite Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen, but a Bellator-ish version of that. Number 3, 80 seconds. Alex Pereira winning his light heavyweight title back from Magomed Ankalaev has to be the easiest reclaiming gold has ever been, immediate or not. GSP needed more time and effort to take back the title from Matt Serra. The official stats show that Magomed Ankalaev landed 4 strikes during the bout, but honestly, I can't remember a single one of them. And that fight, just happened. Given that Poatan is 38 years old, how the first fight went with Magomed having answers for any questions Alex posed, and that Ankh was generally pretty great, many assumed this would be the end of Chama, the end run of a really big draw and interesting champion. Pereira getting an immediate rematch was justifiable given his reign and of course his star status, but it felt more like wishful thinking on the UFC's part than anything. But Poatan came out fast, aggressive, and with 2-ton bricks for hands, and made quick, easy work of one of the most challenging puzzles the division's had in some time.
We gotta appreciate him now. I mean, that was revenge.
Seeing Pereira back in form immediately raised his profile to the most interesting champ in the sport at the moment, but as spectacular a performance as it was, it pales in comparison to when Alex dropped the middleweight strap back to his longtime rival. Number 2, Let It Go.
Frozen like Elsa.
Yeah, it's impossible not to compare Israel Adesanya to Alex Pereira in every regard. They're so closely linked to each other through their combat sports rivalry.
I think you and I are destined to do this forever.
And in this instance, I gotta say, Izzy had the better take back. Not the easier one, but it was way more spectacular. Of course, we all know the story. Alex got the better of Izzy twice in kickboxing. Both became superstars in their own right, with Poatan a 2-weight KB champ, and Adesanya having the best MMA middleweight title run since Anderson Silva. When Poatan made his way to the UFC, their paths would collide again, and again Alex had Izzy's number. Despite winning 3 rounds heading into the final minutes, Adesanya was stopped, suffering a 3rd loss to the man he seemingly could not escape or defeat. That was until the rematch, which took place just 5 months later. Israel would KO his personal boogeyman in the 2nd round and then shoot a whole quiver of fictional arrows at him. Took the man's belt and his taunt that is ice cold, but also one of the coolest possible endings to one of the most satisfying rivalries this sport has had in some time. Except for, of course, number 1, Cleveland Steel. I feel like because most people don't think about the details of a fight but the result, that they forgot how badly Stipe Miocic was losing to Daniel Cormier in their rematch. But I'm getting ahead of myself on why it was so damn amazing. The two legends first met after DC moved up to heavyweight during his light heavy reign in an attempt to become double champ. And he did, quite easily, with a 1st round KO in one of the most impressive victories of his whole career. While Dan wanted to fight Brock Lesnar for all the money after that, circumstances, known as Lesnar never fighting again and never really intending to probably, meant instead that Cormier would take a short notice fight with Derek Lewis to save a card and then have a second go, it's Stipe. Since Miocic had a record 3 defenses before DC toppled him, on his end of this equation, he was given a second chance immediately. Honestly, he got really lucky the Brock fight fell through. But okay, back to when he regained the title, Miocic would be hit with a divisional record 181 significant strikes up to the end of the 3rd round when he started seeing success with body shots. How did he survive that onslaught? Stipe's head is made of mithril from the elves, and in the 4th, he would come back in dramatic fashion to regain the title he'd lost the fight previous.
Miocic is getting the belt back!
Wow! What an absolutely insane moment between 2 of the best to ever do it. Their 3rd encounter would see Miocic smother DC easily, but we don't like talking about the COVID times. But I do like talking about the editor of this video, Max Randall. Show this man some love on his socials. Go check out his awesome YouTube channel and bake him a pie. Bake him a pie. A massive thank you to our channel members. Your support is so important to this channel. I cannot thank you enough. Fight fans, hit the join button. Become a member. Get exclusive content. Sometimes videos go up early. I would highly recommend it. Like and subscribe because we always do cool videos like this where we put historical context on something that just happened that was cool. Leave a comment about which of these was your favorite title take back. Oh, and if you watched that Lance Palmer series, tell me what you thought about that too. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you on another video very shortly, maybe right after this.